I'm Amy from Doodle Dog Designs. Today I'm going to make a chalkware sheep using an antique candy mold. This is an antique sheep candy mold and some plaster of Paris. The inside of my mold does have a little bit of rust, but it's still going to work just fine. So I'm just going to put it together, and then I'm going to use some clamps to hold it together while I'm working. I want it to stand upright when I put the plaster in, so I want to use some clamps on the bottom here that will allow it to stand upright. Then I'll add a couple clamps at the top too. The instructions on the plaster of Paris say to use 2 parts of plaster of Paris to 1 part of water. I've made some marks on my cup. That is the right amount to mix up to make this sheep mold. I figured this amount with a little bit of trial and error and making a few sheep. So I'm going to put that, I've got a bowl that I'm going to mix in. So before I started, I got the inside of the mold wet, and that will help release the chalkware when you're finished. Now I have my 1 part of water to add to my 2 parts of plaster, and I'm just going to use that. I'm using disposable things here. I've got a paper bowl and a plastic spoon. That way when I get all done with this, I can just throw those away. You just want to mix up the amount that you need for your project because it will harden. So once you get it all smooth and all of the plaster of Paris is completely mixed in, you can start pouring it into your mold. And as you do this, you want to shake it a little and tap it just to make sure that you get any air bubbles that might be in it. Get those out. And when I get to the end here, I want to use these clamps to create a level surface, and then I'm going to put a lid underneath here also to help it stay level. As you can see, I've filled it all the way to the top. Then I'm going to let this set for 1 hour. It has been an hour, so now I'm going to take the clamps off and remove the mold. As you can see, it leaves a little bit of some residue here around where the 2 parts of the mold came together. So you can just take a knife or something and just carefully scrape Just want to carefully scrape the seams. And then once you have the seams scraped off, you can use a steel wool pad or some really fine sandpaper to sand the seams down even more. You also want to make sure that your bottom is flat enough that it will sit straight. Still has a little bit of a ridge there, and I don't like that ridge, so I'm going to scrape on it a little bit more. Got a little bit of a ridge here around his face too. Once you get it smoothed down and you're happy with it, you can set it aside. I like to let them dry overnight before I paint them. So after you let it dry thoroughly, you can paint. I have another one here that I made the other day and it is totally dry. So I'm going to paint this bottom part green. To have the grass green, I'm using Folk Art Thicket. You can sometimes find antique candy molds at antique shops or on eBay. If you really like the look of these sheep, but you know you would never get one done, I'm going to put a few of them in my Etsy shop. I'm going to let that green dry and then I will paint the sheep. The grass is dry and now I'm going to paint the sheep. I'm using this Folk Art Vintage White. The cream paint is dry now, and I'm going to touch up a little bit just along the edges where the two colors meet and get that a little bit crisper of a line. I've got some black paint and I've got a skewer. You could use a toothpick, just something with a very small tip, and then I'm going to use it to just paint a really tiny dot in the eye spot. The paint on the sheep is dry now, and I'm going to add some of this Folk Art Home Decor Antique Wax to age it a little bit. And I'm just going to take a clean rag and I just want to put a little bit on the rag, and I want to not have any big globs, so I'm going to kind of rub it into the rag a little bit, and then I'm going to use that to rub around on the sheep. Just want to give the sheep somewhat of an aged look so it doesn't look freshly painted. I painted this one the same green on the bottom, and then I did black on the top, and then I did a thin coat of the cream, the same vintage white paint that I used on the other one. I used just a light coat of that over the top of the black. And this one I painted brown first. I used this burnt umber, and then I painted a thin coat of cream over the top of it. I painted this one with the cream first, and then I painted the burnt umber over it, but instead of full strength of the burnt umber, I watered it down and just did kind of like a whitewash with brown paint over the top of that. And then I thought it was just too dark still, so then I went back over it with another really light coat of the vintage white. I think this one's my favorite, but of course it was the most work, the most coats of paint. When you get all finished and have them the way you like them, you can apply a coat of some spray-on varnish. I like to use a matte finish so it doesn't make it shiny. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe below. I'll see you next time.